Hi everyone, I'm Lauren Robinson with the Ilion Free Public Library, and today I'll be talking about the history of Ilion's historic Methodist Church and the background behind Methodism in Ilion. This is part 4 of a series we're making about all of Ilion's historic churches, so be sure to check out those and stay tuned for more videos like this one. Let's get started. From what we can tell, the group that started the Methodist Church in Ilion seems to have formed in 1832. They started holding services in a house on East Canal Street, and the group eventually moved into a small schoolhouse on the corner of Arlington and East Main Street. They had a preacher visit and deliver sermons. When the group started, it only had 6 members. In 1841, the Ilion group of Methodists, along with other local Methodists and Universalists, pooled their funds to build a Union house of worship on the corner of Otsego and 2nd Streets. If you've listened to my other history talks about Ilion's other churches, you know this worship house was meant to be a shared space for different religious denominations to hold services and have enough room for everyone. So the Methodists and Universalists built it and used it, and their group was called the First Methodist Church. But their building was also used by the Episcopalians and Baptists in Ilion, until each denomination raised enough funds to build their own separate local churches and become independent. D.B. White was the first founder at the Union House of Worship, and he served until 1862, when he enlisted to serve in the armed forces during the Civil War. Interestingly enough, we found some meeting minutes from a regional conference that further tied the Union House to the larger national issues surrounding the Civil War. The meeting minutes plainly stated the First Methodist Church, quote, pledged to stand by President Lincoln to preserve the Union. Later, in 1862, after White's retirement, the Methodists bought a parsonage, and in 1864, an appeal was made to build a separate church specifically for the Methodists. Philo Remington, son of the well-known gunmaker family behind Remington Arms, was elected as chair of the building committee for the new church, and plans were made to build on the corner of West and 2nd Streets. Originally, the intention was to build the new church using cut stone from a quarry in Cedarville, New York. Those plans changed after they examined the quarry more and determined the rock was either too soft or too porous to build with, so they used red brick instead. On October 1st, 1864, the cornerstone was laid for the 80 by 50 square foot church. It was finished in November of 1865 and was dedicated on January 3rd, 1866 by Bishop Matthew Simpson. Constructing the church costed about $25,000, but only half of the money was raised by the time it was completed. To resolve the financial deficit, a plea for donations was made during the dedication ceremony, and within an hour, the remaining funds needed were raised. By 1890, the church was in need of more space. At that time, Caroline Remington offered $12,000 to the church to add a new chapel to the building in memory of her husband, Philo Remington, who died in 1889. The chapel was built and dedicated in 1891. Caroline died in 1906, and a few years after her death, her daughters Ida and Ella Remington donated a signed Tiffany stained glass window to the church in memory of both of their parents. This was one of the first stained glass windows installed in the church. In 1910, extensive repair work was done, including new flooring and lighting, and the installation of a steam-based heating system. The walls were also repainted and the front entrance was redone. In 1926, the organ was dedicated, and on October 22, 1944, the Methodist Church celebrated its 80th anniversary. Here are some more recent pictures of the chapel. This is the view from West Street in Ilion if you're standing in front of the Ilion Library and looking across the street. You can see how the newer brickwork of the chapel ties in with the original brickwork of the church right behind the telephone pole in the picture on the right. In 1954, the Steele property, which was next door to the church, was bought in order to expand and create an educational building. Some remodeling work was done inside the church again in 1863, and services were temporarily held at the Knights of Columbus and Masonic Temple in Ilion. A nearby private residence called the Armstrong property was also bought around this time frame and raised to create parking space for the church across the street from their entranceway. 1964 marked the church's 100th anniversary, and property on Beringer Road was bought in 1983 as a new parsonage for the church. The old parsonage was later refurbished and turned into the Cornerstone Thrift Shop. In 2003, new roofing was installed on the church and its associated facilities, following some repair work, and the church was officially listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. In 2014, the church also celebrated the 150th anniversary of the laying of their cornerstone. Before I wrap up, I also want to talk about the name of the church as well, since it changed over time too. Around the late 1800s and early 1900s, when the Ilion Methodist group was getting started, there were already 3 Methodist churches in the local areas around Ilion. They were the Methodist Episcopal Church, the Methodist Episcopal South Church, and the Methodist Protestant Church. These 3 churches all merged with the Methodist group in Ilion as they began holding services in the village and planned the construction of their church. The Ilion Church group also merged with the Evangelical United Brethren Church in 1968. Once all the mergers were settled, the Ilion Methodist Church was renamed as the First United Methodist Church of Ilion. Then, on July 1, 2002, Frankfort and Mohawk formed a cooperative parish called Morning Star Ministries. They also merged with the church in 2008, and the church's name changed again to the Morning Star United Methodist Church. That's its current name. So Methodism was not uncommon in the local area around Ilion when the village's own Methodist church was founded. Ilion's Methodist Church was, in part, the result of several mergers and consolidations of similar religious groups, and also a way for local worshipers in Ilion to establish their own church that was independent of the shared Union House of Worship once they had construction funding. The Remington Chapel addition and the church's stained glass windows also still stand as physical reminders of its history and the influence of some of its prominent members. So that's the end of this history talk. Thank you all for listening. If you have any questions or want to know more about any of Ilion's historic churches or buildings, please visit our history room at the Ilion Free Public Library or call or email us. Also be sure to follow us on social media and check out our YouTube channel for more content like this coming soon. Bye!